Welcome, Hoosier fans, to this week's edition of Assembly Call Radio, where each week we discuss the most important IU basketball stories from the past 7 days. This is our 51st edition of Assembly Call Radio, and it is our 345th episode overall of the Assembly Call, recorded on the evening of Thursday, November 2nd, 2017. I am your host, Jared Morris, and let's begin this week how we begin every episode of the Assembly Call, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And for this week's banner moment, I want to take you back to early in the second half of Indiana's exhibition win over Marion. If you recall, the Hoosiers led by 12 at halftime, 40-28, but Marion quickly cut the lead to just 8 points with a 6-2 run to begin the half. And one of Marion's buckets during this little mini run was a breakaway layup that was basically just gifted to them, courtesy of a head-slappingly bad turnover by Deron Davis, some 30-plus feet from the basket. It's the kind of mind-numbing turnover that has become commonplace for Indiana over the past few seasons, much to the chagrin of, well, all of us. And what has exacerbated the frustration of watching such turnovers is that there often hasn't seemed to be much in the way of consequences for them. But maybe that's starting to change. Because a couple of possessions later, at the first dead ball after the turnover, Deron was lifted from the game for Freddie McSwain. Now, I wasn't on the bench, and I wasn't at the game, so I can't know for certain that Deron was lifted because of the turnover specifically, but it was awfully early in the half for a substitution. So my hunch is that the turnover was at least part of the reason. And in that moment, I just felt such relief. It appeared that an Indiana player was actually being held accountable for a careless turnover that had led directly to points. And what a moment this was for all of us. Indiana fans everywhere noticed golden light streaking through their windows. We heard angels sing. Hallelujahs rang out. Finally, what we've all been waiting for, real accountability for a terrible turnover. And here's the best part. Deron actually responded well to the quick hook. His best sequence of the game came soon after he returned. He made a great pass out of the post to Curtis Jones for a three. Then he put his magical footwork on display in executing a beautiful up and under move for a bucket. In fact, the entire team responded well. Just 10 minutes later, at the under 8-minute timeout, it was 76-44. In other words, Indiana went on a 34-10 run to blow the game wide open. Now, was this run a direct result of Archie pulling Deron for the turnover? Surely not. At some point, Indiana's vast advantages in size, talent, and athleticism were going to manifest themselves, and they did. But I refuse to underestimate the importance of that moment. Exhibition games aren't so much about wins and losses and margins of victory as they are about establishing and developing habits that will carry into the games that count. That's what happened last year. I used terrible turnover percentages in the exhibition games, carried right into the regular season, and lasted until the final game. Well, last Saturday night, Archie Miller wasn't having it, and his Hoosiers followed his lead, turning the ball over less in their first time out as a team than they did in any game last year. That's an important and much welcomed step in the right direction for this program. All right, now let me introduce my esteemed co-host for this week's show. To my left, we usually have one of the world's most decorated and renowned bracketologists and a Robert Johnson fan club president who is not deterred in the least by a 3-for-13 shooting night in an exhibition game. I am referring, of course, to Andy Bottoms, but Andy is currently at his daughter's basketball practice, surely demanding wind sprints for every careless turnover, and likely won't be able to join us until a little bit later in the show. So we'll hope to welcome him in and get his Bottoms line then. But now, to my right, ladies and gentlemen, we have someone who is so determined to stay on brand that he's already claiming credit and doing a victory lap for discovering Devonte Green and predicting his breakout before the exhibition season is even over yet. He is a columnist for The Big Lead, and he is a man who, if he's really determined to take credit for something, and let's be honest, isn't he always, shouldn't he take credit for writing this back on June 30th when many others were saying the opposite? Quote, in the long run, the Pacers are going to win the Paul George deal, unquote. Heck, the short run isn't looking too bad either. And here's a quick update, and I'm not making this up. In the time since I wrote this intro on Wednesday afternoon, he has now publicly claimed credit for his immediate take on the Pacers Thunder trade via post on thebiglead.com. I should have known. He is Ryan Phillips. Ryan, what is your Indiana basketball-related rant this week?
Well, let's remember, first of all, I predicted that would be the trade that would get made. I actually named Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis going to the Pacers. Then it happened. I said they won that trade, and I stand by it. They are a much better team without Paul George and with those two players. Anyway, on to IU basketball. I'll be short here. I just think that my moment of the week was just getting a game underway with a new coach. I mean, we had a long stretch under another system, under another coach, and it had its ups and downs. It certainly had some wonderful moments and then had some terrible ones as well. I think that, for the last, what is it now, 7 months, it seems like almost, there's been a lot of talk, and now it was time to play. And moments of that Marion game, and certainly there are concerns about this team. Dude, I was muted the entire time on Skype.
Were you really?
Yeah. So what I would say is I'm just excited because I think we're actually playing games now, and we're actually, we've moved forward to a spot where, we're not talking about basketball anymore. We're actually playing it, and we're seeing what Archie Miller's team can do, and what these guys can do in his system, and see how they can play and what it'll look like. And I think it's going to take time. I've said all along I won't judge this team until mid-December, but I think that, it's nice to see some steps forward in the right direction. As you said, that turnover moment, watching them play that help defense a little bit stronger and recover, and guys getting in the right position was nice to see. It was certainly a different look than last year.
No question about it. All right, well, here's what we are going to discuss this week. We'll get Ryan's hot takes if there are any others on the exhibition game, and then also a few choice quotes from the first edition of Archie Miller's Coaches Show, which debuted on Thursday night. Then we'll talk about some headlines, including the latest on Darius Garland, where IU is falling in the top 351 list, because it's kind of all over the place. And then a really interesting quote by Max Bielfeldt, Ryan, that I'll be interested to get your thoughts on. Then a new segment that we're calling Secret Overreactions, and I think you'll enjoy this. And finally, our Twitter Q&A, and maybe a little special bonus after that if we have time. All of that coming here on Assembly Call Radio. But before we jump into all of that, I do want to just take a quick moment and say thank you again on behalf of our entire team. Tomorrow was supposed to be the day that our preseason donation drive was going to end, but we hit our goal well before that. And I know I mentioned this on the show, on the exhibition game, post-game show, but I just wanted to say it again, to thank you for all of your support. It's unbelievable that we can, open that up and ask you to help support us for what we're doing, and you guys come through so much. And basically, we had our goal within, 48 to 72 hours, something crazy like that. So we just really appreciate it. And I know Andy and I both had a chance to say thank you, and Ryan, I wanted to give you an opportunity to as well, because I know that you wanted to express your appreciation too.
Yeah, thank you everybody for being so dedicated to the show and helping us out. And we do this because we love it, not because we make a ton of money off it, but it helps fill out some of the things we want to do on the show. I mean, we pocket virtually none of this money, so it all goes back into the show, and it goes to things we want to do to make the show better for you guys. So thank you so much for your donations. It really means a lot, and it helps us keep things going.
Yeah, and as we go through the season, if you do still want to support the show, then use the URL iutickets.shop to go to SeatGeek and shop for IU basketball tickets, and iustore.shop to visit the IU online store for gear. Those are our affiliate links, so we get commissions whenever you use them. Again, iutickets.shop and iustore.shop. All right, you are listening to the Assembly Call. I'm Jared Morris here with Ryan Phillips. And Ryan, you obviously didn't get a chance to join Andy and I for the exhibition post-game show. And obviously, Devonte Green was a big story coming out of that game. But what were some of your hot takes from that first exhibition game?
Well, I thought the defense looked, it's still a work in progress. Everything is a work in progress with this team. I can't sit here and say this is what it's going to be yet. And I've continually cautioned people about, hey, let's wait a few months, let these guys get the systems down. I thought at times the offense looked a little disjointed, but it's expected at this point with a new system and new players. I think Clifton Moore, while he didn't play a whole lot, I thought he looks physically so much better than he did in high school. I think we jokingly in the offseason, I kept throwing out that he needed to be eating like a ham sandwich every 20 minutes, to gain some weight. But I thought physically he looked a lot better than he did in high school and on high school film. And I thought Devonte Green, I mean, you can call it a hot take, is that he's a basketball player. He's one of those guys, no matter where you put him, he's going to do something for you. And he just knows how to play the game of basketball. He's not the flashiest guy. He's not the, doesn't have the athleticism to jump out of the gym, not ridiculous length, none of that stuff. But he's just a guy who gets things done and causes problems for the other team. And I think that, along with the way they played that pack line help defense, really stood out to me. And those were the two things I took away from it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Archie's coaches show, because last year and for a while that's been on Monday nights. It is now on Thursday nights. It begins at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So nice little lead in for Assembly Call Radio. We appreciate it. We appreciate the scheduling there. But there were a couple of quotes that stood out to me, Ryan. I want to get your reaction to them. One is, and I loved this, almost did a last minute change to the banner moment, but Archie said, if we've done one thing, it's trying to establish that we're not going to be a team that's going to give up easy baskets, which is music to the ears of IU fans who have seen, that's been one of the biggest problems with Indiana's defense, is just the breakdowns that lead to easy buckets, not where the other team didn't even feel like they really had to earn it. And if Indiana can just reduce those, along with reducing some of the really bad turnovers, you're looking at a 6 to 10 point, advantage or, swing from last year right there. So I thought that was a real positive. Obviously he's got to do it. There's more than talk that's needed,
right? But
nice to know that's the emphasis.
And again, that's going to be a process, because it's a matter of committing to defense for 30 seconds. You've got to commit to defense for the entire shot clock.
And that was the nice thing, is how many times we forced Marion into late shot clock situations. That was
exactly.
Nice to see.
And I think that, again, the defense is what stood out to me in that game. And I think that he's right. I think that makes you such a more difficult team, especially in the high scoring era of basketball. I think that if you can be a team that can get a stop, great defense usually stops great offense. It usually stymies it. And I think that if you can make yourself a much more difficult team to score on, and then you can get the talent in that can score in one-on-one situations. I mean, you obviously want to run a team offense. No question about that. You want to run that team spread offense where everybody has a chance to touch it. You're moving the basketball, all that. But late clock situations, if you have a guy who can beat people and get in and either score or set somebody else up to score, and Indiana has the ability to recruit those guys. You're seeing it right now. The recruiting that Archie's doing looks like he'll be able to get some of those guys to beat guys one-on-one late in clock. If you can do that and at the same time stop the other team from doing that, you're going to be in a pretty good position to win some basketball games, particularly late in games, if you can keep it close with that defense.
Yep. All right, one more thought that Archie had, and I thought this was kind of interesting, and apparently no decision has been made, but the question was asked, what of his traditions, and, I guess talking about back when he was the coach at Dayton, did he appreciate the most? And he talked about starting lineups and how he actually doesn't really like traditional starting lineups. He said, at Dayton, I felt to have a traditional starting lineup with the spotlight on each one isn't what it's about. We huddle and announce the starting lineup in the huddle, get away from the spotlight, come back to the group. What would be your thoughts on a drastic change to the starting lineups at Simon Scott Assembly Hall? Because when I first heard that, I kind of liked it.
I kind of like. I mean, can you imagine not getting to cheer for Yogi Ferrell before a game, or Cody Zeller before a game when they got called out and run out?
Or as Chronic Hoosier said, not getting to hear Chuck Crabbe say sophomore.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I could do that. I kind of like the pageantry of that at a big program, and the music and everything, and getting to cheer, and then and head coach Archie Miller. I mean, come on, I think that's fun. Archie's gonna do whatever he wants. It's his program to run. But
I like he's going to listen to this conversation and determine based on what we suggest.
He would. I don't know. We'll determine whether he hasn't been here long enough for me to know whether or not he's smart. So he does have a great actual first name in Ryan. So we'll see. No, I think that I think he's going to do what he wants and build his team the way he wants. But I kind of like that aspect of the way things play out.
Yeah,
intros.
Let us know on Twitter what you think about that at Assembly Call. I'll be interested to hear what people think. All right, coming up on the Assembly Call, we are going to go through some headlines, including the latest on Darius Garland's recruitment, where Indiana's falling in some of the 1 to 351 rankings, and then an interesting quote by Max Bielfeldt that we'll discuss. That's next. All right, that was 1501. So what we'll do for the first segment for the radio show is I'll just take the YouTube audio and use it for that. So it'll be fun.
Sorry about
it's
that.
Nice having a backup.
I clicked it and it didn't go. So.
Yeah, it happens. That's one of the risks that you take for muting. All right, so 1501. By the way, hello everybody watching on YouTube. We are hoping to get Mr. Bottoms in, so hopefully he will be here. But
you might want to cut out me saying, "Oh, by the way, I wasn't on Skype."
Yeah, I will. I'll edit that out. Okay, so that was 1501. So that gives us let's see, 11 or 10.
Are we still only doing 30
59.
minutes on Fridays?
Yes, until the football season's over.
Oh, they're not done yet? Okay.
No, I don't think so. 10:59, so we need to be out of this one at 10:42. Okay. So we'll go through some of this stuff pretty quickly. Because there's not a whole lot new to report. I just want to hit some of these and then we can linger on the Max Bielfeldt quote a little bit.
I hadn't read the Garland stuff.
That's the thing. There's not a whole lot to say.
Did he take a visit to Vandy or?
No, he took a visit to UCLA.
Right.
His Vandy visit. He did the Vandy visit with Romeo a couple weeks ago.
Mm.
So, now there's a few Vandy people who have put in their crystal ball pick and said for Vandy. So, I mean, it looks like we are where we were, which is that it's a 2-horse race, and it looks like both schools have a good shot. So,
unless Under Armour ponies up some cash.
Whoa.
I'm kidding. It was a joke.
That kind of stuff doesn't happen in college basketball.
Happens. It's never happened, especially not with a reputable company like Under Armour.
Whoa. Look who's here.
Oh.
He's going to get to join us for segment number 2.
They're running behind. I can't. No, I'm just kidding.
We could be running even more behind if we had to re-record segment 1, but fortunately we don't need to.
Oh, all right. Well, good.
We almost did.
We almost did, though.
I didn't unmute.
It's okay. I put him to sleep with my intro.
You did. It was pretty long.
Well, I was trying to fill Andy's time, too.
You lodged a preemptive complaint about that, I saw. So,
But he was right. I appreciated that. I should let you know. Ryan did help me edit down the intro, and it was, I'm just trying to explore the studio space a little bit, see if people like, that at the beginning. It was probably a little bit too long.
Ryan just probably wanted more time to speak for himself. So the less that you talk.
I was pretty short.
I think
my rants have been getting shorter.
They have been
getting much shorter.
They have been. Okay, so segment 2, Andy will.
I'm on Skype if you want to add me to whatever.
Oh yeah, that's right. We got to add you. Okay, so bear with us real quick here, folks on YouTube. We gotta get Andy set up here on Skype for the.
Jared's he's just off tonight.
Radio recording. Hey, I'm on.
Oh man, Bills game is everything I wanted it to be.
There's a Jets Bills game on right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's
amazing. It's called work. What I have to do, and tonight it actually feels like work.
Jets Bills, yeah.
One of the rare times it actually feels like work.
Let me do a quick test recording. Andy.
Test. This is Andy.
Ryan.
Test. I'm unmuted.
Okay, I think we're good. I think we are good. Okay, so let's hop in now to segment 2 and let's get this show on the road. So Andy,
if we run out of things to talk about, we can always dive into Stranger Things season 2.
No, I have not. I have like 30 minutes left. Our daughter woke up preemptively last night, so we didn't get to finish the whole thing. So I've got like 30 minutes.
30 minutes from the end.
Yeah, we didn't get to finish, so no spoilers.
I haven't watched one episode of that show or nearly any other popular show in the last, I can't even tell you how long. So
and that's why I don't have.
That's about the only one I'm in on. But man,
I'll just stand back if you guys want to have that discussion.
Stranger Things is good. Okay, so Andy, we'll go to you. I'll hit some of these headlines fast, and then because we have. Andy, we have 10:42 for the segment.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about? Because I honestly did not really look at the first couple parts of this.
He's going to bring up Darius Garland. And
I'll lead you through this. I'm not even going to send Darius Garland stuff over to you guys because there's just not that much to say. I just want to hit it because
bottoms
people
line,
will be wondering.
Rant, I just said, it was nice to actually have basketball instead of talk for once.
All right.
So
good deal.
All right. Here we go. Okay. Starting. Right now. You're listening to the Assembly Call. I'm Jared Morris here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips, my co-hosts on the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And don't forget, if you ever have to miss all or part of an episode of Assembly Call Radio, there are two great ways to catch up. You can subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for Assembly Call. Or you can join our live Thursday night broadcasts or watch the video replays by subscribing to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/assemblycall. And we have a special treat. Andy Bottoms is back early. We thought we wouldn't get him until segments 3 or 4, but he's here for segment 2. And so, Andy, the floor is yours for your Bottoms line from the past week in IU basketball.
Oh, boy. I quite honestly, it's just more days ticking off the calendar until the season actually starts. All these rankings come out 1 to 351 and different poll results. And I'm working on preseason bracketology and stuff like that. But it'll be exciting to actually have games that matter. But for me, it's just every day a little bit more preview content out there to soak up and just ready for the season to actually get started. And my kids' season start this weekend, so I've got a game to coach tomorrow night, and my team of first graders. So that should be high comedy, I'm sure. So
why would that be the case?
Well, it's the scrimmages in practice have been entertaining. I'll just leave it at that.
Is it me or is that a reflection on the coach, Jared? That's a reflection on the coach.
Definitely a reflection on the coach. No question.
Yeah, if they're not going to take it seriously in games where no score is kept, I don't see how anyone should really be able to
just yell at one of them for not recovering. Just if you're not going to recover, just one time. All right.
I did. My older daughter had practice tonight. I got on her a couple times about things because I figured she can take it a little bit easier than the 6-year-old can.
That's good.
The limit of how many times per year you can make them cry. It's like 5. I can't allow myself any more than 5 this year.
That's like the difference in how Archie will treat Clifton Moore and Colin Hartman this year. Get on Colin. He can take it and spare the freshman. All right, let's do this.
Exactly.
Let's roll through some headlines. So let's hit this one real quick. Headline on Darius Garland. Evan Daniels reported for Scout.com that Darius hasn't made a decision. Breaking news there, right? Because he hasn't made a decision. He still would like to before his high school season starts, apparently. Kind of caused a wave among the message board crowd when a few people switched their crystal ball picks to Vanderbilt. And look, we got excited a couple weeks ago when a bunch of crystal ball picks switched to Indiana for Darius and Romeo. So it's only fair to state that happened. But it doesn't sound like there's any real news that, kind of caused those movements. So who knows if there's, jostling going on in the background. But it sounds like it's still a 2-horse race between Indiana and Vanderbilt. And we'll just have to wait for Darius to actually make his decision. I still, feel pretty good about it. And there's nothing really new on the Romeo front. So we just have to wait on both of those guys to make their decisions. Headline number 2, the AP preseason poll is out. Duke is number 1. Michigan State is number 2. And Andy, my first thought when I saw that is Archie Miller is going to get a chance to knock off numbers 1 and number 2 at Simon Scott Assembly Hall this year, which is always a good thing.
Oh yeah, good to have those teams coming in, and then Big Ten teams. These polls aren't all that different from one another. Quite honestly, Minnesota's 15th in both. Purdue's 20th in one, 21st in another. Northwestern 19th in one, 20th in another. And I think those are the only Big Ten teams that are ranked, which just kind of lines up with what most everybody has said. There's a fairly clear-cut top 4, and it looks like a handful of others receive votes. Maryland received some. Wisconsin, I think, just out of habit, people are continuing to vote for them, and Michigan got a few as well. So.
Hey, Ryan, by the way, we had a new listener, I think last week, who emailed and asked why you hate Coach K so much. And I promise that there will be a lot of discussion about this leading up to the Duke game, after the Duke game, and you'll go into all of your reasons for your disdain for Coach K. Yeah, unless you want to do a little bit now, feel free.
No, we should. It won't be quick. We should probably take a whole segment on
entire segment.
Maybe shift it to Assembly Call After Dark. But no, I think we'll probably want that on the podcast. We might have to start it and sort of tease some Assembly Call After Dark stuff because there might be swearing. I'm not going to say there will be. I'm not going to say there won't. But no, I think I'm definitely up for getting into that. Maybe I'll sort of, you have to give me some time and a heads up for when that's going to be because I got to organize my thoughts on that for sure.
Okay. Well, November 29th is the game, so that's right. That's your heads up. So, all right, that week we will do it. Okay. Headline number 3. where are other people ranking Indiana? So people, obviously, they're not in the top 25. So where is Indiana ranked? Well, a lot of these 1 through 351 rankings have come out. We talked about the Ken Palm rankings last week, where Indiana was 65th, and they're kind of all over the place in the other rankings. SI has Indiana 46th, 8th in the Big Ten, and they actually have Indiana in the first 4. So they're the last team to make the tournament. They are the most bullish of anybody on the Hoosiers. ESPN, and these rankings were done by John Gassaway, has Indiana 53rd, and he has Indiana 9th in the Big Ten. And then Matt Norlander from CBS hates Indiana. He has the Hoosiers 75th and 9th in the Big Ten. So in other words, no one really knows what to make of IU, but SI is clearly the closest to right. Andy, what do you make of these? And have you started to do any of these preseason predictions of your own? And where is Indiana falling?
Yeah, I'm working through preseason bracketology. I think the one thing that you see in a lot of these is there's some teams in the Big Ten that are pretty closely clustered together. I know ESPN also put out their preseason BPI numbers, and IU is 46th in that as well, which I think puts them 8th or 9th again. It's kind of what we've said all along. There's not a ton of separation once you get down into the, typically it's kind of the Iowa, Penn State, IU kind of grouping. When you get down to like around 8th in the conference, is probably a couple, maybe they're a little bit closer than that. They're close to 7th in a couple of them, but I think it's pretty fair where they are at this point in a lot of these rankings. I think they get points, probably isn't the right word, but they certainly get credit for being experienced. And so I think some of the experience production they have, but they also have guys coming back who have shown some serious and continued flaws over the course of the last couple of years, which also go into these models from an efficiency standpoint. And so anytime you're changing coaches and things like that, they all try to account for the coaching change differently and what that's going to mean. Recruiting, I think most of them don't really weigh recruiting in too heavily unless it's really the top of the top guys that are there. So IU doesn't have any of those guys coming in. So I think pretty fair based on what everybody knows right now in terms of computer modeling. And I think, again, speaks to the fact that Big Ten, there's some pretty clear tiers that are out there, and there isn't a ton of separation even between teams like 5 through 9 or 10. I think those could shake out in just about any order when it's all said and done.
You're listening to the Assembly Call. I'm Jared Morris here with Ryan Phillips and Andy Bottoms. Ryan, your thoughts on where Indiana's falling in these rankings?
Here's my thing, is that nobody knows what this team's going to look like. And I've been saying that. We've been saying that. I think all of us have been saying that for a while. I mean, we don't know. And you have to remember that last year this team was projected to do really well and didn't. And I think that people are grading this year's team based on what they saw last year, when I think last year it's fair to say that everybody performed poorly. And that team was dragged down almost like by each other. The play of those guys was dragged down by the play of the other guys, so it was sort of a cumulative snowball effect as that season went along. So I would say that we really don't know. And I think that people in these models are guessing because they're basing it on what they saw last year. Whereas a guy like Juwan Morgan is much better than he showed last year. A guy like Robert Johnson is probably much better than he showed last year. Freddie McSwain looks like he's a much better player. Durant Davis is certainly better than he was last year. So, I mean, there are guys who are Curtis Jones and Devonte Green are better than they were last year. So really you can't look at last year's team as a model for this year's team. And I feel like a lot of these projections model based on that. That's not to say that they're necessarily wrong. I just think they're guessing in a lot of ways because we don't know what this team's going to look like at all. New system, new coach, new style of play. So any of the statistical stuff you would use to project is kind of out the window. So I would just caution anybody who's looking and saying, oh, IU's going to be out of the tournament now, as to say, okay, nobody really knows what they're talking about at this point. And we'll see as this goes on. I think by mid to late December, we'll have a handle on what this team is and what they'll be for this year.
Yeah, that's why 4 of these rankings, one had them in the 40s, one in the 50s, one in the 60s, one in the 70s. So all over the place, which seems fair. All right, so let's end with this. Had a chance to talk with Max Bielfeldt on the latest edition of Podcast on the Brink. And I thought he made a really interesting comment. Want to get your guys' thoughts quickly on it. He said that the home court advantage that Indiana receives playing at Simon Skjodt Assembly Hall can actually be a disadvantage on the road because of the crazy fan support that you get at home. You kind of get used to that, and it's a little bit jarring to not have it on the road, in addition to just, being in a tough road environment. And it's especially tough in the absence of an emotional leader. And he thinks that Colin Hartman can be that guy this year, that Indiana really missed that last year, that it was kind of obvious that he was out. And that could be another reason why this team improves and plays a little bit better than last year's team did. I just thought that perspective was really interesting. Ryan, quickly, what did you think about Max's quote?
That's a really interesting perspective, and I would go so far as to even say that IU's home court advantage doesn't necessarily hurt. It might actually help when they go face hostile environments. Where it hurts them is when the atmosphere is dead.
Like Penn State.
That's why they struggle at Penn State. They struggle at places like
three
Illinois.
people that sat right behind the broadcast table at the Penn State game last year were really into that game.
I mean, but I think they've struggled playing at Ohio State when they're not that great. They've struggled playing at Iowa when nobody's showing up. So I think that it actually hurts them more when there's less of an atmosphere than a hostile atmosphere.
Yep. All right, coming up, we will debut a new segment. This should be fun. It's called Secret Overreactions, where we lay bare the observations that we'd otherwise be too nervous to say out loud. That's next on the Assembly Call.
I don't want to be that guy, but if we lay those bare, they're not going to be secret anymore.
Exactly. That's what we're doing. We're going from secret to now they're out there in the open.
Like what Conan O'Brien kept doing in the year 2000, in like 2010.
Yeah, exactly. We're going for irony here. All about the irony.
I'm trying to pull up
the
box score from the other night.
What'd you say?
I'm trying to pull up the box score from the other night. I'm trying to find it.
All right, so I can lead this off. I'll kind of explain what it is and then give my first one, and then you guys can kind of react to that. Tell me if I'm crazy or tell me if you think maybe there's something to it. And again, remember, the whole idea here is these are supposed to be a little controversial, maybe a little crazy. Maybe you can't even defend it. It's just kind of like a feeling that you have. And it's kind of irrational, but you've been feeling it, and so you're just going to put it out here, and it's just the three of us here talking. No one else is here. No one else is listening. We're just talking amongst ourselves.
You're among friends.
That's the idea. That's what we're going for here. All right. Cool. Are we
Let me see. Hold on. I'm looking at the box score to come up with one.
Do you have one, Andy? And we'll see how long we go, and maybe we'll get.
Yeah, I have kind of an idea about one. I'm not sure if it quite falls in line with the exact idea you're going for.
I want you
see how it goes.
I want you guys to find something that scares you. Like, what scares you to say out loud? Because that's what'll make the most compelling content here.
IU basketball related, right? Because there's things that scare me to say out loud.
Yeah, IU basketball related. Yes, you should. It should be a little frightening to say this out loud over the radio airwaves. But that's why we're here. We'll tell you if you're crazy, or we'll tell you if you're onto something. And I want, hey, folks in the chat, if you're in the live chat, I think you all need to participate, and you need to provide your secret observations. The thing that's just kind of gnawing at you a little bit. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It could be like, I think Curtis Jones is going to average 25 points because I just think he's ready to dominate, and I've just got a gut feeling about it. That's not mine, by the way. Not that I'm discounting.
I want to hear yours, then I'll have mine easily.
All right. Okay. Are we ready to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. All right, here we go. You are listening to the Assembly Call. Go to assemblycall.com/join right now to learn how to subscribe to our email newsletter. If you want to get more out of being an IU basketball fan, then you need to be on our newsletter list. You will get our weekly Six Banner Sunday news roundups, as well as our detailed post-game analysis emails. It is all free, and it will make you a smarter IU basketball fan. Again, the URL is assemblycall.com/join. I am Jared Morris here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips, my co-hosts on the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And gentlemen, it is time to debut a new segment, and we are calling this segment Secret Observations. And so the goal here is we are going to kind of lay bare...
Secret observations?
No, secret overreactions. Sorry, secret overreactions. Yes, I said that wrong. And it's important. That word overreact, thank you for the correction, because the word overreaction is important, because these are meant to kind of be a little out there, and especially at this point in the season, really almost any observation, can be an overreaction because all we have to go on is a scrimmage and an exhibition game. But these are just kind of maybe gut feelings that we have about something, either good or bad, that we might not normally say on the show because maybe it's not fully developed. Maybe we can't really defend it, but just a gut feeling that we have after watching this team. All right. And then the other two people will tell you if you're onto something or if you're kind of crazy. So I'll go first and just kind of show you a little bit what I'm thinking here. You kind of understand the ground rules here and what we're getting at?
It's not difficult. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Okay. So here we go. So here's mine. So after the scrimmage, after the exhibition, I'm starting to get a little bit worried that Deron Davis may not be ready for his close-up. And I say this, like, I think physically he looks better. I think he looks more athletic. But I couldn't help but find myself expecting more from him in the Marion game. And I talked about the big stretch that he had. You know, he's shown some flashes, but, you know, he played almost 20 minutes, only grabbed 2 defensive rebounds. You know, kind of drifted in and out of the game, and his scoring came in spurts, but there were times that, you know, he just wasn't a factor. And I thought, you know, just some of the other reading between the lines things, Archie talked a lot about him at the beginning of the offseason. Now in a lot of his recent quotes, you're not hearing that. He's not a guy whose name is being mentioned a lot for the gold jersey. And, you know, a lot of times when Archie talks about him now, it's about, we've really been getting on Deron for this, and he needs to do this. And so much is expected. There was so much excitement, and I still have very high hopes. I guess I just expected a little bit more these first 2 outings, and so I'm hoping to see it Sunday, but I can't fight a little gnawing feeling that he may not be ready for the close-up and ready for the big jump we all think he needs to take for Indiana to, be better than these preseason expectations. Am I crazy or am I onto something?
I think it's hard to. I know it's supposed to be an overreaction, but I think that is definitely an overreaction. I think that you've got to give the guy time to get comfortable in the system, and you're going to see some of these guys look uncomfortable in the system and wonder when they're supposed to shoot, when they're supposed to do this, when they're supposed to do that. Robert Johnson's not going to go 0 for 5 from 3 a lot. He's not going to go 3 for 13 from the field a lot, and I don't think Deron Davis is only going to get 2 defensive rebounds very often and drift in and out of the game. I think you're right on what you saw, but I think you also have to sort of give a bit of grace to these guys for a while as they try and figure out how they fit in and where they belong. I thought Deron was in great position on defense for most of the night, which I think is very important for him because he's going to be relied upon there a lot. Offensively, I think it'll come because I think we've seen in stretches he can be great. But sure, it's fine to be concerned. I'm fine with that. But he might also feel out of place right now and just be trying to find his way. And I think that might have something to do with it. But I think talent wins out. I think we all know Deron Davis is very talented, and I think he'll get there eventually.
Andy, am I crazy or am I onto something?
I think I would look at it in a couple of different ways. On the one hand, I think the part that we have seen over the course of the last few seasons that we also saw in some of these is a struggle to get the ball inside to whoever the post player is. Now, that isn't necessarily a reflection on him as much as it is maybe the rest of the team or how they're getting him the ball. So I think that part is maybe a little concerning to me. So I've kind of gone with you a little bit there. And the other piece of it is, I mean, I think you could apply a similar statement to any of the guys who have really, we've kind of looked to coming into the season to really shoulder the load. I think Robert Johnson has had moments, but his shot hasn't looked great. I think Juwan Morgan, a lot has been expected of him as well. And I don't know that he has, we've talked about some of the 3-point shooting and kind of his insistence on shooting a lot of those in these settings that have been there so far. So I think,
but Archie has also talked glowingly about Juwan in terms of practice too, so there's some things there that help mitigate that a little bit in my mind.
I say all that to say, I don't know that I'm worried necessarily about any of those guys, but I think the statement that you made about Deron maybe isn't, if from a production standpoint, isn't specific to him. So I'm not really worried yet. I worry more about, can they actually get him the ball so that we can get a more definitive answer to your question? Because if they can't, then I don't know, then it becomes a little bit hard to evaluate him in that way.
All right. Well, I feel a little bit better. See, I'm glad that I let that secret overreaction out because now I feel better about it.
Andy's overreaction. I'm going to Andy first.
Ryan has volunteered you next, Andy.
Oh yes, because it's so easy that you're making other people go first. All right,
yes,
this is probably not quite as much of an overreaction as we thought, but it does tie into kind of something that I've tracked over the last few years. So one of the things I think we all wanted coming into the season was this tighter rotation of players where maybe there was only 8 guys that played. And we've looked at Archie Miller teams in the past and have seen him play a little bit tighter group of guys and let them really gel. My belief is that's not going to happen this year. I actually think there's 10 guys based on what we've seen so far that assuming that everybody is healthy will play, and that doesn't really count Al Durham because we haven't seen him yet. But I think,
and for the record, Archie basically
that we
said,
kind of,
for the record, Archie basically said that Al's defense was as good as anybody's, and that he is in the rotation on the radio show earlier tonight.
So maybe you get to see. So maybe that puts you at 11. But I struggle to figure out who you take out of that based on what we've seen before. From a guard perspective, you've certainly seen good things from really all four. And you know that, Robert Johnson's going to play. He's the one that may have struggled with the shot the most of any of the four of the guys that we've seen. He's not going to be out. If what you said is correct about Durham, he's going to be in there. You've got Juwan Hartman and Deron Davis that are going to play. I think McSwain is going to be able to give good minutes, and I don't know how you sit the freshmen without letting them get some experience. So I think a rotation that we might have hoped might be 8 might end up being 11, and I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it's, when you watch these guys play, I think there's more talent and depth and the desire, at least from a fan perspective, and I would assume also from a coaching perspective, to play more of these guys and really start to see what he has for a team that's going to lose a ton heading into next season.
I think you're onto something there. I really think you are. I don't know that it's necessarily, a bad thing for this season, because Archie's still learning these guys. Unfortunately, he's got a deep bench of talented guys, maybe not a lot of superstars. So it'll be interesting to see as the season goes, if that rotation shortens. But I definitely think you're onto something, especially early in the season.
Yeah, and I think basketball is moving away from tight rotations. It just is. It's moving away. It's moving more to balanced, minutes for guys, where guys play, especially in college, play between 25. The top guys play between 25 and 30. You're not seeing guys play 36, 37, 38 minutes anymore. And it's more of an up and down game where you're running a lot and there's not a lot of slowdown. So you can't play 40 minutes, unless you're one of the best players in the nation. You're not going to do that. So I think that wider rotations, keeping guys fresh, are certainly things that, in this up and down era, that people look for more often. So I think you're right, Andy. I think that while Archie may, where his inkling and his instinct might be to keep that tighter rotation, I just don't think you can do that these days as much.
You're listening to the Assembly Call. I'm Jared Morris here with Ryan Phillips and Andy Bottoms, and we are laying bare our secret overreactions, things, kind of observations that we've had that we've been a little bit afraid to say, but we're laying them bare here for you. Ryan, what is your secret overreaction?
I think Devonte Green's going to lead the team in assists this year. I don't even know if he's going to start. I don't think he's going to start, but I think he's going to lead the team in assists because I think he's the best distributor on the team, and I think that has become obvious over, watching him play a little bit and thinking about the other guys who will be running sort of, ball handling. I don't think Josh Newkirk, I like Josh Newkirk, what he provides. I don't think he's necessarily a distributor. I think Robert Johnson's more of a scorer on that wing spot who can pass the ball a bit. But I think Devonte Green is a distributor, and he's going to be a guy who gets other guys the ball in good positions to score. And I don't think, and even if he, and I'm projecting that he's going to lead the team in assists and not be a starter. Because I think that while the rest of the team will spread the assists around, when he comes in, he'll be a guy who gets the ball to people. So that's my prediction. I don't know if that's crazy enough for you, but that was my initial reaction and maybe overreaction.
That's interesting. I think you might be onto something there. I was fully expecting you to say like Devonte Green was going to lead the team in scoring and be first team all Big Ten or something like that. And that would have been crazy. But I think you might be onto something with assists specifically, because look, Josh Newkirk has turned himself into a pretty darn good shooter. Like, we are now going back well into last season.
And he shot
being a really good
shooter.
Too. Yeah. And he hasn't been a big assist guy consistently. And you're right. Robert Johnson has played his best basketball as a guy on the wing, a spot up shooter. He did, some nice distributing, the last year that he played with Yogi, but that's not really his forte. So he could do it just by sheer minutes, because I think he'll play more minutes. But you got a good point there about Devonte and his ability to create and get into spaces, and I think see things that other guys don't see.
That's the big court vision.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something with that one, actually. Andy,
it's really hard for you to admit that I might have said something smart.
I'm just glad you took a little bit of a different angle on it than I thought, because I was all ready to unload and talk about how Devonte scored 17 points in last year's exhibition game and what did it mean, but you specified it well. So nice work.
What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, to what Jared said was, I think if so much of college basketball and basketball in general is predicated on, ball screens and things like that. And he definitely seems to be the most comfortable in making reads off of those plays. I think there was one of the things that Ryan Carrazza broke down in the film session from the exhibition game was a play where he ended up dishing it. I want to say it was to Clifton Moore, but I could be wrong about who it actually was. But made a really good read off of a curl, got the ball and made a good
it was
good
to
decision,
Clifton.
a good pass.
Yeah.
And so I think he's a guy that just seems most comfortable in those scenarios. I think I agree with you guys about Robert Johnson, and I know that was some of the NBA draft feedback that he got was about whether he could run a team. And while I think he'll get chances to do that, I think he's best suited with this team, with who else is there, that he can be the off-ball guy and go through that. And I think Newkirk can do that in spurts, but I could see him doing that better against a second-team defense than against the first. So, yeah, I actually I don't know that I would be that shocked by that at all, quite honestly, just because his feel for passing and where to get guys the ball just seems to be better than anybody else on the team at this point.
All right, I've got one more to close us out. I think that Justin Smith and Clifton Moore are going to have a similar impact on this year's team to what Juwan Morgan and OG Anunoby had their freshman year. They didn't play much in the beginning. Now, here's the difference. Is neither of those guys has an elite skill like OG Anunoby had from a defensive perspective. And I actually think their impact will be more on the offensive end than it will be defensively, because I think this is a team that's going to struggle to score. But I think Justin Smith is showing that he's a guy who can get to the line. He's a slasher type, and he knocked down all 5 of his free throws. And Clifton Moore, we know the varied skill set that he has, and especially being a big man, if he can come in and spell Deron Davis, I think there are going to be games where he comes in, gets comfortable, and feels it, and puts up 6-8 points in a flash, and you're like, where did that come from? And for a team that is going to struggle, I think, with consistency on offense, and look, it's hard to say that about freshmen when they've barely gotten their feet wet playing at all, but just from what I've seen of them, come January, come February, come March, I like what they can bring to this team with increased minutes and increased comfortability, especially on the offensive end. Am I onto something, or am I crazy?
I think they'll have an impact. I don't think it'll be that strong. I thought what OG and Juwan Morgan did that year was spectacular and enormous from them. And I don't know if it's going to come. I don't think it's going to be that strong from these two. I like them both.
I don't think it's going to lead to a Big Ten title, just because I don't think the team's going to be on that stage. But your point's well taken.
Right. No, I think that long term both these guys could be great, but I think that's a little strong for what they can give this year. I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm off. Andy, what do you think?
I think I'm kind of half and half. I think Clifton Moore, I think that could be true of because he is going to be able to be in the weight program, add some weight to his body, but he also has a unique skill set for this team in terms of the size, but the ability to put the ball on the floor. I think he'll be able to give teams a different look than Deron could, depending upon what other teams are doing defensively. Worry about, can he really get enough minutes to have that kind of impact eventually? Because kind of going back to my last point, I don't know at whose expense he gets those minutes outside of an injury, which we can't really predict and certainly hope doesn't happen. So that would be my one concern with him. Yeah, I think there will be games when he comes in and can give him a lot of energy and play well in short spurts. I just don't know that he ends up carving out the kind of minutes that those guys were able to during that year. But I could see Clifton Moore doing that of the two. So I'm kind of halfway with you on the two of them. I think if somebody got hurt in the front court, I think you could see that with Smith. But I think in the absence of that, I'm just not sure he plays enough.
So I think what we've seen here in this segment is that I am clearly the most supportive of the three of us. I supported both of you in your overreactions, and I don't feel like I got the same level of support from you guys.
Yeah, no, we're jerks. It's okay. We're jerks.
I laid my soul bare. These things that I've been thinking and harboring. I was very afraid to put this out there.
Well, another secret that Ryan and I have is that we made a pact to undermine this new segment idea that you had. So now I have laid that secret bare, and now everyone knows.
There we go. Very nice. All right. Coming up on the Assembly Call in our final segment, we've got a bunch of great questions to hit, some other topics that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet in this show. So we will do that next as we close here on the Assembly Call. All right. That was 16 minutes. Always nice to stop right on the nose. So that gives us 8 minutes, 7:24. We got to be out of here. All right. So other than the awkward intro explanation, what did you guys think of that segment? Good, bad, keep it, ditch it?
Let the listeners say.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm asking.
I thought it was
targeting them.
But I'm curious to see what you guys thought. I mean,
I thought it was okay. I just don't know that's something we could do every. I don't know that's something we could do every.
No.
Like maybe every few games or something. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. We just kind of pull it out and maybe some things, some lingering thoughts that we've been harboring, that kind of thing. All right. Well, we'll see. Gotcha. We'll see what people think.
I think that's an occasional segment.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad we tried it. We should think of some fun, creative new segments that we can do. Keep things fresh.
Let's see. The Osterman question would be hard.
It's a very hard question.
Yeah, and it might take way too much time.
Well, we'll see. If we get to it, we can just discuss it really quick at the end because it was big on Twitter today. Yeah. But there's some meat to discuss some of these other questions. So
yeah,
we can talk about it after if we don't get to it. All right, Colin Hartman's role. Who wants that one?
Let's see. Do we know when he's going to be back?
Archie said he might play Sunday. If he does, he'll be on a minutes restriction probably, but hopefully he can get like 10, 15 minutes in. But nothing official. He's back like playing full contact, I think, as of a couple days ago. So
they're basically just holding him out mainly until the bullets are real.
Seems precautionary for the most part. Try to save minutes on him.
And Durham might play, but probably won't. He's had a hamstring issue. Which stinks.
Okay. Yeah, I can take that. I think he's going to be a starter.
I think we can. Yeah. I mean, I think we can both kind of.
Yeah, we can both.
You can take that first, Ryan, and then I can jump in a little bit if there's anything else.
Okay. All right, here we go. So we've got 7 minutes and 24 seconds for this segment.
All right.
You guys ready?
Yep.
Okay. You're listening to the Assembly Call. I'm Jared Morris here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips, my co-hosts on the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And it is that time in the show when we answer your questions. So a lot of good ones sent in. Let's get right to it. The first question comes from Noah Freeman. Noah wants to know, what will Colin Hartman's role be once he is able to come back? Obviously, we discussed this a little bit in segment 2, just in terms of the leadership that he can provide, especially on the road. But Ryan, what do you think Colin Hartman's role will be once he's back playing on the floor?
I think he's going to be the starting small forward, 3-4 wing guy, along with Juwan Morgan out there on the floor. I think he has to start. I think he's your senior leader, and I think that he's a guy who does so many little things to help you win that they have to put him out there as much as possible. So I think he's going to be a starter, and I think he's going to be a reliable guy. And he's not going to be a guy who's going to drop 25 points for you. But he's a guy who might fill up the stat sheet a bit. Sort of if he gets halfway to a triple double. Every game, 5, 5, and 5, I guarantee you he had a phenomenal game. So I think that that's what he'll do, and that's what his role will be, at least to open the season, as soon as he's fully healthy.
Andy?
I think the only thing I would add to that is they've talked a little bit about wanting to have him initiate and run more offense through him. Doesn't necessarily mean that's going to lead to a large number of shots that he's going to take, but I do think we're going to see him put in positions to really set up other guys a little bit more than what we've seen from him before, where he was largely a catch and shoot guy, and some of the times that he was with Tom Green.
All righty. Our next question comes to us from Will. How many guys on this roster are future NBA players? Who are they and why? Ryan, you want to take a crack at this?
Ooh, let's see. I think Deron Davis. These are guys who will play in the NBA. That is my baseline. Not stars, not regular, guys who play that much.
At some point, they'll play in the NBA.
Deron Davis, 1. Robert Johnson, 2. I'm looking at the roster right now. I think Justin Smith will make it eventually. I think Devonte Green will. And
all those guys are going to play in the NBA.
Juwan Morgan. Yeah, at some point, I think they all will.
You didn't even mention Clifton Moore.
We don't have some scoop that he knows about NBA expansion coming up. Apparently,
I don't know. No, I don't know enough about Clifton Moore
except that he's the only guy on the NBA draft radar, according to Draft Express, which is ironic.
But yeah, I think that Robert Johnson can play in the NBA. I don't know if he will, actually. I mean, maybe he'll go play in Europe, but the guys who are going to be in the NBA, I think Justin Smith will be in the NBA for sure. I think Deron Davis will be in the NBA. And Juwan Morgan will all three definitely be in the NBA. Devonte Green, Robert Johnson, Clifton Moore. I could go either way on.
Wow.
Those are my three for sure, guys.
Interesting. Andy, do you have any? I mean, I don't think we'll see that many guys. I hope so, obviously, but I don't know that those guys are going to be NBA players.
Even if they're on the deep bench, especially with the way the G League is set up now, where you can go up and down.
That does help. So hopefully.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think Deron, if he can, continue to progress, I think Morgan and Smith, I agree with as potential candidate just because of the, their kind of physical makeup and their ability to, in Morgan's case, we kind of know this, and in Smith's, we hopefully see it over the course of time, ability to guard different positions and play on the wing are possibilities. But yeah, Clifton Moore would be an interesting one. Yeah. I mean, if I had to pick a number, I'd say 3, although I don't know that I'm super confident in who those 3 are. But I guess I'm less bullish on that than Ryan would be.
It's not often that I'm the pessimist. Like, I think there's a lot of really good college players on this team, but I mean, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 NBA players, guys that'll actually play in the NBA. I think a lot of guys will play professionally, but I just don't know if we, I mean, like James Blackman Jr., he's, what is he? He's in the G League, right?
Yep.
And I mean, you don't have anybody on this team that can score at that level or that has a skill like that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I hope I'm way wrong. Time will tell. All right, let's get through these next ones pretty quick here. Dustin, will Al Durham see minutes as a freshman? Significant minutes. We seem to have capable guards already, but is he good enough to share minutes? Look, I think Archie has been very clear that your ability to be on the floor is going to be based on your ability to practice well and defend well, and obviously, not turn it over. And he's been very, very complimentary of Al Durham. In fact, he said in terms of defense, he was talking about defense. He said Al was ahead of pretty much everybody. He was showing some real savviness on the defensive end. Now he's got to get those hamstring issues, fixed. But it really sounds like he's a guy that's in the rotation right now and that will see some minutes, even if it's as kind of a defensive specialist at first. But, it's hard to say. We haven't actually seen him play, but what the coaches are saying in practice sounds really positive for Al Durham. So hopefully that proves true. Any thoughts real quick, guys, on Al?
I think just based on Archie's comments, it seems like he's going to play. I mean, and again, if you can play defense, he's going to love you. So I would not be surprised if he gets minutes as a freshman.
Yep. All right, Andy, this is from Derek Morgan. Indiana faces a wide range of talent in the non-conference schedule. What games will be the best measuring stick for where the team really is? And let's throw Duke out. I mean, that's kind of an easy question. And maybe answer this 2 ways. One, pick from the Louisville, Notre Dame, and Seton Hall games for which you think is, will really tell us. And then maybe pick one of the off-the-radar games that are really challenge Indiana and tell us where the Hoosiers are.
Of the main ones, I'm going to say Notre Dame. I think the Louisville and Seton Hall games being on the road will be challenging in and of themselves. And while that element of the game could give you an idea where this team is, I think one of the things that we really want to look at is how much the team is coming along defensively. And Notre Dame, Mike Bray teams always have an efficient offense and a solid offense. So I think that game on a neutral floor against a very solid team that's probably a top 4 or 5 seed type of team in the NCAA tournament that has a good offense. It'll be a good measuring stick for the defense. Outside of that, it's really hard. I mean, I've continued to look at these rankings and really try to figure out who the best of the rest really is. That appears to be Eastern Michigan by pretty much every measure. Any of those rankings that you cited for IU, they are the best or right among the best of the other teams that are on IU schedule. So I guess I'll say that one. And I think that's one of the ones that's right around Thanksgiving as well. So I think there's a chance that, that one is not necessarily a test of the team from a skill standpoint, but I think, that one's the Friday after Thanksgiving. So they play the Wednesday before and the Friday after. So even mentally from hey, can you turn around and do this? You've just had the holiday. Can you come back and kind of get your mind focused back to play somebody? I'll say them just because they're kind of the best of the rest team.
Yep. All righty. Well, that will do it for us on this week's episode of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, join us at assemblycall.com on Thursday nights for the live broadcast of our Assembly Call radio recording. Or you can always subscribe to our podcast by searching for Assembly Call wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com/join to join our free email newsletter. Thank you for listening. We will be back to talk IU hoops again with you next week. Until then, keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers. And cut. Very nice.
All right. I got to get back to work, boys.
You go enjoy that Jets-Bills game.
Oh, yeah. It's 10-7 at halftime, Jets. It's great.
Nice.
Great stuff.
Sounds awesome. So, Andy, you are out this week, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'll be able to watch the game, but we probably got to leave toward the end to get her where she needs to be. So
what is it? 2:00 on Sunday?
Yeah, it's at 2:00 Eastern, so 4:00 Eastern post game show.
Okay.
Yep.
Roughly. Yeah, and she's got something.
Is it on?
So.
It's on
BTN
Plus again.
And Plus, yeah.
Yep.
How many games are on BTN? It's just one regular season game, right?
Yeah, just the Indiana.
That one and then the Indiana State. Yeah, the opener.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right.
All right, gentlemen. All right. Good to see you. Good to see everybody here. Glad you made
thanks
it.
for tuning in, folks.
Yeah. Always great to have you here. So we will talk to you guys on Sunday.
Later.
All right.
All right.
See you, everybody.
Sounds good.